Welcome to Pharmacist and Drug. Like, share, and subscribe for healthcare-related content. Why are there not more people talking about the dark realities faced by individuals with diverse gender identities? Can't we just have one episode where we don't talk about the deeply entrenched systemic issues plaguing our society? And to that, I say, you must be new here. Because the truth is, these stories are not just statistics. They are real lives affected by systemic issues and societal prejudices. We're talking about people who are routinely denied basic rights, healthcare, and even safety, simply for being who they are. Let's start with the absolute dumpster fire that is conversion therapy. This isn't some archaic practice left over from the Dark Ages. It's still happening today, right here in the year of our Lord, insert current year. Now, for those of you fortunate enough to be unfamiliar with this particular brand of awful, conversion therapy is the deeply flawed and frankly offensive idea that you can change a person's sexual orientation or gender identity. It's like trying to convince a cat to fetch. It's not going to end well for anyone involved. And the methods used? Well, let's just say they range from the absurd to the downright barbaric. We're talking talk therapy, aversion techniques, even electroshock therapy. And the worst part? There's absolutely zero scientific evidence to support any of it. In fact, study after study has shown that conversion therapy is not only ineffective, but incredibly harmful, leading to depression, anxiety, and even suicide. But here's the real kicker. It's still legal in far too many places. Now, let's talk about a policy so nonsensical, so blatantly discriminatory, that it would be laughable if it weren't so deeply, deeply unfunny. I'm talking, of course, about the transgender military ban. 2017, the powers that be decided that transgender individuals, people who are literally willing to put their lives on the line for their country, were somehow unfit to serve. And the reason? Well, they couldn't quite articulate one. It was a mess of vague pronouncements about disruption and unit cohesion, which are, of course, code words for we're uncomfortable with people who don't fit neatly into our narrow worldview. This ban wasn't just a slap in the face to transgender service members, it was a giant middle finger to the very idea of equality. Thankfully, this discriminatory policy has since been reversed, but the fact that it was ever enacted in the first place speaks volumes about the challenges still faced by the transgender community. This next topic is a tough one, but it's a conversation we need to have. Transgender individuals, particularly transgender women of color, face a disproportionately high rate of violence. We're talking about assault, hate crimes, and even murder, often fueled by a toxic cocktail of transphobia, ignorance, and hate. And here's the truly heartbreaking part. These crimes are often underreported and even more often go unpunished. Imagine living with the constant fear that simply existing, that walking down the street or going to a bar could make you a target. It's a reality for far too many transgender individuals, and it's a stain on our society. We need to do better. We need to demand justice, accountability, and an end to the violence. Okay, let's Let's move on to something equally absurd, but significantly less talked about. The barriers to healthcare faced by transgender individuals. Now, you'd think that in the 21st century, access to basic medical care wouldn't be a privilege, but sadly, that's not always the case. Transgender individuals often face discrimination, prejudice, and even outright denial of care, simply for being who they are. And it's not just about finding a doctor who's understanding and informed. It's about navigating a healthcare system that often feels designed to exclude them. We're talking about insurance companies denying coverage for essential treatments, doctors refusing to use a patient's correct name and pronouns, and a general lack of understanding and sensitivity. It's unacceptable, and it's literally costing lives. Now, let's talk about a place where vulnerability is often exploited and basic human rights are routinely ignored: the prison system. Transgender individuals, particularly transgender women, face a unique set of challenges within this already flawed system. Often, they're housed in prisons that don't align with their gender identity, making them targets for harassment, violence, and even sexual assault. Imagine being forced to live in a constant state of fear, surrounded by people who see you as different, as less than human. It's a terrifying reality for far too many transgender inmates, and it's a stark reminder of the urgent need for prison reform that prioritizes the safety and dignity of all individuals, regardless of their gender identity. Chapter 7: Forced Sterilization, a brutal violation of bodily autonomy. Okay, buckle up, folks, because this next one is particularly horrifying. In some parts of the world, transgender individuals are subjected to a truly barbaric practice: forced sterilization. That's right. In order to legally transition and have their gender identity recognized, they're forced to undergo a medical procedure that robs them of their reproductive rights. It's a blatant violation of human rights, a cruel and unnecessary measure often justified under the guise of protecting traditional values or some other such nonsense. Make no mistake, forced sterilization is a form of eugenics, and it has absolutely no place in a just and equitable society. Now let's talk about the workplace, a place where, ideally, everyone should be judged on their merits, their skills, their work ethic. But for transgender individuals, that's not always the reality. Discrimination rears its ugly head in the form of hiring bias, wage gaps, lack of promotion opportunities, and even outright harassment. Imagine being passed over for a job you're qualified for simply because of who you are. Imagine being afraid to come out at work, fearing that you'll be fired or ostracized. It's a reality for far too many transgender individuals, and it needs to change. Let's move on to the wonderful world of media, where representation matters. Unfortunately, when it comes to transgender representation, the media has a pretty dismal track record. Too often, transgender individuals are relegated to the sidelines, portrayed as stereotypes, or worse, completely erased from the narrative. This lack of visibility and accurate representation has real-world consequences. It perpetuates harmful stereotypes, fuels prejudice, and makes it harder for transgender individuals to feel seen, heard, and understood. We need more diverse voices telling transgender stories, more nuanced portrayals that challenge the status quo, and more opportunities for transgender creatives to share their perspectives with the world. And finally, let's talk about something so seemingly simple, yet so often a source of frustration and despair for transgender individuals: legal recognition. Imagine having to jump through hoops, navigate bureaucratic mazes, and fight tooth and nail just to have your gender identity legally recognized. We're talking about changing your name and gender marker on official documents, a process that should be straightforward but is often anything but. This lack of legal recognition can have a ripple effect, impacting everything from employment to healthcare to travel. So, there you have it. 10 dark realities faced by individuals with diverse gender identities. These stories are a stark reminder of the challenges faced by individuals with diverse gender identities. It's crucial for us to continue raising awareness, advocating for change, and supporting those who are fighting for their rights. We need to challenge our own biases, educate ourselves and others, and speak out against injustice wherever we see it. Remember, progress requires action, and silence only benefits the oppressor. Thank you for watching, and let's work together to create a more inclusive and just society.